The arena's combat floor stretched 300 meters in every direction, a killing ground designed for the galaxy's most brutal tradition. Commander Zekthar stood at the center, his forearms crossed in a display of absolute confidence. He was a Kravathi, 9 feet of scaled muscle and predatory grace, undefeated in 73 ritual combats. His reputation preceded him like a stormfront. Whispers followed him through every station, every colony, every military outpost. The hunter who never missed, the warrior who never lost. And today, he wanted to add a human to his collection of victories. Lieutenant Jade Harper walked onto the opposite platform, her boots clicking against the metallic surface with deliberate slowness. She was compact, barely 5'6", with dark hair pulled back in a practical braid. Her combat suit was standard issue, nothing fancy, nothing augmented. She looked, by all accounts, completely outmatched. Perfect. The crowd in the observation decks above roared their approval. Thousands of aliens from dozens of species had gathered to watch this spectacle. Betting odds scrolled across holographic displays, overwhelmingly favoring the Kravathi champion. Some showed ratios of 50-1. Others didn't even bother listing the human as a viable option. Zekthar's mandibles clicked in what his species considered a laugh. "Human," he called across the distance, his translator rendering his growls into standard galactic. "I requested a warrior. They sent me a child." Jade stopped at her mark, rolling her shoulders loose. "Funny," she called back, her voice carrying easily in the arena's acoustics. "I requested an intelligent opponent. They sent me a walking meat grinder with delusions of grandeur." The crowd's noise shifted, surprise rippling through the alien spectators. Humans didn't usually engage in verbal sparring before combat. They certainly didn't insult Kravathi champions to their faces. Zekthar's eyes narrowed, all 4 of them focusing on the small figure across from him. "You have spirit. I will enjoy breaking it." "You'll have to catch me first, big guy." The Arbiter, a floating sphere of ancient technology, descended between them. Its voice resonated through the space, neutral and absolute. "This combat is witnessed. Victory conditions, surrender, incapacitation, or death. The challenged may choose weapons. The challenger must accept." Zekthar gestured magnanimously with 2 of his arms. "I am the challenger. The human may select." This was his favorite part, the psychological warfare before the violence. Most opponents chose the weapons they were most comfortable with, revealing their fighting style before the first blow landed. It gave him a tactical advantage he'd exploited dozens of times. And Jade tilted her head, appearing to consider. The silence stretched, tension building like a coiling spring. Then she smiled, bright and sharp. "No weapons." Confusion flickered across Zekthar's face. "No weapons. No, that's right. Hand to hand, or, in your case, hands to hands to hands to hands." She paused for effect. "This is a battle of strength, right? Let's see what you've got." The crowd exploded in noise. The betting odds shifted wildly. The Kravathi champion's expression moved through surprise into something darker, something hungry. She was playing into his greatest advantage. His physical superiority was absolute. Without weapons, without tools, this would be a slaughter. "As you wish," he said, his mandibles spreading wide in anticipation. The Arbiter rose higher. "Combatants ready. Begin on my mark." A pause that felt like eternity. "Mark." Zekthar launched forward with devastating speed, closing the distance in seconds. His forearms spread wide to grapple, to crush, to dominate through pure, overwhelming force. This was how he won. Every single time. Get close, use his mass advantage, and break his opponents before they can adapt. Jade didn't move. She stood perfectly still, watching him come, her expression calm. At the last possible second, she shifted her weight, a minimal adjustment that sent Zekthar's grasping arms past her shoulders. His momentum carried him forward, expecting resistance that never came. She dropped low, sweeping one leg through where his ankle should have been. Except she wasn't aiming for his ankle. She was aiming for the joint behind it, the knee equivalent that supported his massive frame. The strike connected with surgical precision. Zekthar stumbled, surprise flashing across his face. No one had ever dodged his opening charge before. He recovered quickly, spinning with predatory grace, all four arms now poised defensively. Jade had already moved, circling to his left, her steps light and measured. "You know what's funny about being the biggest, strongest thing in every room?" she asked conversationally, as if they were discussing weather patterns instead of trying to kill each other. "You never learn to be efficient." He lunged again, this time more cautiously, leading with two arms while keeping the others ready to intercept any counterattack. She ducked under the first strike, deflected the second with her forearm, and drove her knee into the exposed section of his lower abdomen where the armor plates didn't quite meet. The impact made him grunt, actual pain registering for the first time. The crowd's noise reached a fever pitch. "See, I studied you," Jade continued, dancing backward as he pressed forward with a combination of strikes that would have pulverized stone. 73 victories. Impressive. But you know what I noticed? They all end the same way. You close the distance, you grapple, you win through brute force, every single time. Her words were calculated, designed to distract as much as inform. Zekthar snarled, feinting with his upper arms before striking with his lower ones, in a move that had caught countless opponents off guard. Jade wasn't there. She'd read the telegraph in his shoulder movement, already pivoting away, her hand flashing out to strike the nerve cluster at his elbow joint. His left lower arm spasmed, going temporarily numb. 73 fights, she said, breathing harder now, but still controlled. And not once did you face someone who bothered to study Cravathi anatomy. Not once did you fight someone who understood that all that muscle requires 3 times the oxygen intake of most species. Not once did anyone make you work for it. Understanding dawned in Zekthar's eyes, followed immediately by rage. She wasn't trying to match his strength. She was trying to exhaust him, to turn his greatest advantages into liabilities. It was disgraceful. It was cowardly. It was working. He roared, abandoning technique entirely, charging with all 4 arms extended like battering rams. If he could just land one solid blow, just get his hands on her fragile human frame, this would be over. Jade waited until he was committed, until his momentum was unstoppable, then dropped flat to the arena floor. Zekthar's arms passed overhead with enough force to shatter reinforced glass. She rolled between his legs, coming up behind him, and delivered a devastating strike to the base of his spine where the nerve cluster controlled his lower body coordination. His legs buckled. Not completely, but enough to send him down to one knee, his breathing now labored, his movements a fraction slower. The crowd had gone silent, thousands of alien spectators watching something they'd never seen before. The undefeated champion, the legendary hunter, was being systematically dismantled by a human who barely reached his chest. Jade circled to face him, her expression serious now, the playful sarcasm gone. "You wanted a battle of strength," she said quietly, though the arena's acoustics carried every word. "But strength isn't just muscle. It's knowing when to strike, when to retreat, when to adapt." She stopped circling. "You never learned that because you never had to." Zekthar pushed himself upright, his pride refusing to accept defeat even as his body screamed its limitations. All 4 arms trembled with exhaustion and oxygen debt. His vision narrowed at the edges. He'd been in combat for barely 5 minutes and felt like he'd run a marathon. "I am Cravathi," he gasped. "I do not yield." "I know," Jade said, and there was something almost sad in her voice. "That's why you're going to lose." He charged one final time, drawing on reserves of strength that shouldn't have existed, pure stubbornness overriding physical reality. She met him head-on, a move that surprised him more than anything else in the fight. At the last instant, she dropped into a slide, passing beneath his grasp, her fist driving upward into his solar plexus with every ounce of force she possessed. The impact drove the air from his lungs. The momentum carried her past him. She rolled to her feet, spun, and delivered a perfect spinning kick to the side of his head. Zekthar collapsed, his massive frame hitting the arena floor with a sound like thunder. He tried to rise, managed to get one arm beneath him, and then slumped back down. His chest heaved, desperately trying to process oxygen that wouldn't come fast enough. The Arbiter descended. Incapacitation observed. Victory to Lieutenant Jade Harper of Earth. The silence broke like a dam bursting. The crowd erupted in chaos, confusion, disbelief, and grudging respect, mixing into a roar that shook the observation decks. Jade stood over the fallen champion, breathing hard, her combat suit soaked with sweat. She looked up at the crowd, found the cameras, and smiled that same sharp smile from before. "Anyone else want to test their strength against human intelligence?" Nobody answered. The aftershocks of Jade Harper's victory rippled across the galaxy, faster than light-speed communications. Within hours, the footage had been viewed 3 billion times. Within days, every military academy, combat school, and warrior guild was analyzing the fight frame by frame. The undefeated Krivathi champion, brought down by a human who weighed less than one of his arms. But for Jade, the real complications were just beginning. She sat in the station's medical bay, ice pack pressed against her bruised ribs, when Captain Morris entered with an expression that promised trouble. He was an older man, weathered by decades of service, with grey hair and eyes that had seen too many battles. "You've caused quite a situation, Lieutenant," he said, not bothering with pleasantries. "Sir," he challenged me. "Protocol required acceptance or resignation from service." Morris waved a dismissive hand. "I'm not here to reprimand you. Quite the opposite." He pulled up a holographic display, showing communication transcripts from a dozen different species. "You've become something of a celebrity. Also, something of a problem." Jade lowered the ice pack. "How so?" "Zekthar wasn't just a champion. He was the champion of the Krivathi Dominion's military elite. His family controls 3 star systems. His honor guard numbers in the thousands." Morris met her eyes directly. "And according to their cultural protocols, his defeat brings shame that can only be cleansed one way. Let me guess. They want a rematch? Worse, they want a hunt." The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Jade had heard of Krivathi honor hunts. When a warrior suffered humiliation, they could invoke ancient rites that allowed them to pursue their opponent outside the arena, outside any rules or regulations. It was legal under the treaty agreements that governed interspecific conflicts. It was also usually a death sentence for the hunted. "When?" Jade asked, her voice steady despite the ice forming in her stomach. "They've already dispatched his honor guard, 15 of the Dominion's finest hunters, led by Zekthar himself. They'll arrive at this station in 72 hours. Morris leaned against the wall, suddenly looking every one of his 60 years. "Earth Command is scrambling for a diplomatic solution, but the Krivathi are invoking treaty rights. Legally, we can't interfere. So I run. So you survive. We can get you off station, relocate you somewhere remote, set up protective protocols." Jade was quiet for a long moment, thinking through possibilities, calculating odds. Finally, she shook her head. "No." Morris straightened. "Lieutenant, this isn't the arena. This is 15 trained killers with advanced weapons, tactical support, and unlimited resources. You got lucky once." "It wasn't luck, sir. And running just delays the inevitable. Zekthar won't stop. His honor demands satisfaction, and Krivathi honor doesn't have an expiration date." She stood, wincing as her ribs protested. "Besides, I have an idea." The captain's expression shifted from concern to cautious curiosity. "What kind of idea?" Jade's smile was sharp enough to cut steel. "The kind that turns a hunt into a trap." 72 hours later, the Krivathi honor guard arrived at Station Prometheus with all the subtlety of an invasion force. Their ship was a Predator-class cruiser, sleek and deadly, bristling with weapons that technically violated station protocols, but that nobody was brave enough to challenge. "Zekthar," descended the boarding ramp first, his massive frame now augmented with ceremonial armor that gleamed like dark water. His forearms each carried a different weapon: plasma blade, shock lance, neural disruptor, and a traditional Cravathi claw gauntlet that could tear through bulkhead plating. Behind him came 15 warriors, each as impressive and deadly as their commander. Station security gave them a wide berth. Station commerce ground to a halt. Thousands of civilians evacuated to interior sections, wanting no part of what was about to unfold. Zekthar stopped in the main concourse, his voice booming through the space. "Jade, Harper of Earth, you have disgraced my name. I invoke the right of the hunter. You have 1 hour to flee before I begin my pursuit. When I find you, and I will find you, your death will restore my honor." Silence answered him. The vast concourse, normally bustling with thousands of beings, stood empty except for the Cravathi warriors and a few brave souls watching from behind reinforced barriers. Then, from the station's communication system, Jade's voice echoed through every speaker. "You know what, Zekthar? I'm tired of running. I'm tired of playing by rules designed to favor the biggest predator in the room." A pause, deliberate and calculated. "You want to hunt? Fine. But let's make it interesting." Zekthar's mandibles spread in savage pleasure. "What do you propose, human?" "The station's industrial sector, level 47. It's being decommissioned, so it's empty, no civilians at risk. 20,000 square meters of machinery, storage units, and processing facilities." Her voice carried a hint of challenge now. "You and your 15 hunters against me. No time limit, no rules, just the hunt you wanted." One of Zekthar's warriors stepped forward, confusion evident in his posture. "Commander, this is obviously a trap." "Of course it is a trap," Zekthar replied, his translator catching the amusement in his tone. "She is clever, this human, but cleverness only delays the inevitable. 16 Cravathi warriors against one small human, even in terrain of her choosing." He looked up at the nearest camera, knowing she was watching. "I accept your terms, Lieutenant Harper. We will find you, we will end you, and the galaxy will remember that Cravathi's strength cannot be outsmarted." "We'll see about that," Jade's voice responded. "Your hour starts now." The Cravathi moved as a unit, flowing through the station's corridors with practiced efficiency. They reached level 47 in 12 minutes, spreading out in a standard hunting formation that had been perfected over centuries. Thermal scanners activated, motion detectors deployed, neural trackers locked onto human biosignatures. The industrial sector was exactly as Jade had described: a vast maze of dormant machinery, storage containers stacked 3 stories high, processing vats that could hold small ships, and conveyor systems that snaked through the space like metallic serpents. Emergency lighting cast everything in deep shadows and harsh angles, perfect hunting ground for ambush predators, or so they thought. Zekthar held up one arm, signaling his warriors to fan out in pairs. "She cannot hide forever. Human thermal signatures are distinctive. Our scanners will locate her within minutes." Except the scanners showed nothing. No heat signature, no bio readings, no electromagnetic disturbances that would indicate active technology. "Clever," Zekthar murmured. "She is masking her presence, no matter. We hunt by sound and sight as our ancestors did." They moved deeper into the industrial sector, checking every container, every shadow, every possible hiding spot. 5 minutes passed, then 10, then 15. The facility remained silent, except for the Cravathi themselves. Then the lights went out. Emergency systems should have kicked in immediately, bathing everything in red backup illumination. Instead, absolute darkness fell like a curtain. 16 Cravathi warriors activated their helmet lights, beams cutting through the blackness in controlled patterns. Zekthar's instincts screamed a warning half a second before the first trap triggered. A storage container, rigged with improvised explosives, detonated behind 2 of his warriors. The blast was controlled, calculated, designed not to breach the hull, but to create chaos. Shrapnel from deliberately weakened metal panels tore into Cravathi's armor, forcing the 2 warriors to fall back with injuries. 14 hunters remained, Positions! Zekthar roared, his warriors immediately forming defensive clusters. She is here! Find her! Motion to the left. 3 warriors turned, weapons ready, only to discover they'd targeted a piece of machinery that Jade had rigged to move on a timer. While they were distracted, a section of conveyor belt activated beneath 2 others, carrying them into a processing vat that Jade had filled with industrial adhesive, not lethal, but utterly immobilizing. 12 hunters. "This is cowardice!" one of the warriors shouted into the darkness. "Face us with honor!" Jade's voice came from everywhere and nowhere, broadcast through the sector's intercom system. "Honor! You brought 15 warriors to hunt 1 person, and you want to lecture me about honor?" A pause. "This isn't about honor. This is about you learning the same lesson your commander learned. Strength without intelligence is just violence waiting to be outsmarted." Zekthar snarled, firing his plasma blade in the direction of the nearest speaker. The shot went wide, hitting nothing but empty air. "Spread out, make yourselves harder targets." But spreading out was exactly what Jade wanted. She'd spent 72 hours preparing this battlefield, learning every inch, every system, every vulnerability. She'd rewired the lighting controls, repositioned machinery, created choke points and kill zones with nothing but human ingenuity and stubborn determination. 2 more warriors went down to tripwires, connected to welding torches that activated in their faces, blinding their helmet sensors. Another fell into a pit that Jade had disguised with lightweight panels, landing on foam padding that trapped rather than injured. 9 hunters. Zekthar realized the truth with cold clarity. She wasn't trying to kill them. She was systematically removing them from the field, using their own aggression and superior numbers against them. Every trap was designed to incapacitate, to embarrass, to prove a point. "Regroup," he commanded. "Back to the entrance. We extract and reassess." But Jade had anticipated retreat as well. The pathway back was now blocked by machinery. She'd repositioned remotely, creating a maze that would take precious minutes to navigate. Minutes she used to trigger 3 more traps, dropping the number of active hunters to 6. Only then did she appear, stepping out from behind a support column 50 meters from Zekthar's position. She wore a modified environmental suit with improvised armor plates, carried a welding torch in one hand and a magnetic grappler in the other. Not traditional weapons, but tools she'd adapted for combat. "You wanted to hunt me," she called across the distance. "Here I am." The 6 remaining warriors, including Zekthar, charged as one coordinated unit. This was it, the moment of truth. 6 against 1, even weakened and demoralized, should have been overwhelming odds. Jade stood her ground until they were 20 meters away, then activated the grappler, latching onto a support beam above and yanking herself into the air, just as the floor beneath the charging Kravati collapsed. Not a deep pit, just enough to tangle their legs, to slow them down, to break their formation. She swung through the darkness like some ancient Earth hero from the stories, landing on elevated machinery and immediately moving again. The welding torch flared, cutting through a support cable she'd deliberately weakened. A cargo net dropped from above, entangling 2 more warriors. 4 hunters left, including Zekthar. The commander broke free from the group, his pride and rage overriding tactical sense. He pursued Jade through the maze of machinery with single-minded determination, his 4 arms propelling him forward with impressive speed. Jade led him deeper, always staying just ahead, always visible enough to maintain pursuit. She was breathing hard now, the physical toll of 72 hours of preparation and 30 minutes of constant movement catching up with her. Finally, she stopped in a circular clearing, surrounded by processing vats. Zekthar skidded to a halt 15 meters away, his weapons raised, his eyes blazing with fury and something else. Respect, perhaps, or maybe just frustration. "No more running," she said, genuinely exhausted now. "You want to end this? Here I am." Zekthar lowered his weapons slowly. Behind him, His 3 remaining warriors emerged from the maze, battered but functional. They formed a semicircle, trapping her against the vats. "You have fought well," Zekthar admitted. "With cunning, with preparation, with intelligence. You have proven your point, human. But this ends now." Jade smiled, tired but triumphant. "You're right, it does end now. Not with my death, though." She pulled a small remote from her belt. "See, while you were chasing me, I was leading you exactly where I needed you. Right above the station's main power conduit." Zekthar's eyes widened in horror. "You would not dare blow a hole in the station." "Of course not. I'm not a murderer." She pressed the button. "But I absolutely would trigger every fire suppression system in this sector simultaneously. The sprinklers, activated with tremendous force, designed to combat industrial fires, dumping thousands of liters of flame-retardant foam from every direction." Within seconds, the Kravathi warriors were buried in expanding foam that hardened on contact with air, immobilizing them completely. Jade had positioned herself under the only vent she'd sealed beforehand. She stayed dry, while her enemies became living statues of industrial foam. Station security arrived 5 minutes later to find Jade sitting on a cargo container, completely exhausted, surrounded by 16 immobilized Kravathi warriors who looked more shocked than angry. Captain Morris surveyed the scene, his expression cycling through disbelief, pride, and exasperation. "Lieutenant Harper, you've just defeated an entire Kravathi honor guard using fire suppression foam and industrial equipment." "Yes, sir." She managed a weak salute. "Permission to request medical attention and about 3 days of sleep." "Granted." He paused, then added quietly, "That was the most brilliant tactical operation I've seen in 30 years of service. Completely insane. Probably violated a dozen safety protocols, but brilliant." Zekthar, his head still free of foam, spoke with difficulty. "She has won. Twice. No Kravathi in history has suffered such defeat." He paused, his mandibles working soundlessly for a moment. "It is humbling and enlightening." Jade slid off the container, walked over to the immobilized commander, and met his eyes directly. "You're a formidable warrior, Zekthar. Maybe the best pure fighter in the galaxy. But being the best at fighting doesn't mean being the best at winning." She turned to leave, then looked back. "Next time someone challenges you, maybe ask yourself whether they're playing the same game you are." As station security began the process of extracting the Kravathi from their foam prison, Jade walked toward the exit. Behind her, she could hear alien spectators who'd been watching via security feeds breaking into applause. The deadliest hunter in the galaxy had learned a valuable lesson. Strength could break walls, intelligence could turn those walls into fortresses, and a human who combined both. That was something the galaxy hadn't quite anticipated. Subscribe and like to my channel for more HFY sci-fi stories.